It's been really amazing to see the reaction of everyone to the show, especially as things go along, because there's so many questions, I suppose, and so like the answers are so shocking and surprising. It's been really fun to like hear people try to figure it out and all the theories they come up with. I don't look up anything online or anything, but a few have been sent to me, a few theories and things like that, and it's been quite funny to be like, haha, you are wrong.
Whenever people think that they know what this show is, like they think that they kind of have it in a bit of a box, then usually the next episode completely defies that. And especially as it goes on, nothing in our show is by accident. Nothing goes without being kind of in a satisfying way wrapped up, even if it's not by the end of 6, and there are definitely plans to do it for later on. The overall vibe on our set was one of transparency. People didn't always know what was going to happen, but that often wasn't because we'd been told to keep secrets from each other or anything like that. It was just like people kind of found stuff out as you happened to end up in a conversation with somebody that told you.
Nice to see kind of things being planted in episode 1 that only come to fruition now through episode 6. And I think there's a lot that we as a cast still have to answer, and there's still a lot that we question constantly. And I think it's nice to share that with the fans and just figure it out with them on a weekly basis.
Hey, we're the cast of The Nevers, and this is the top 5 most shocking moments from our show. My first shocking moment from The Nevers is chapter 1 of episode 6, an entirely new set of characters who are all in the future. I think it's around about 21, and they are in this dystopian future where our Earth has been destroyed at our own hands, and we're at war with one another, and our only hope for any salvation is this alien race, the Galanthi. I think that when I first read that and saw how brave it was going to be in its execution, I figured that people would probably spend about the first 5 minutes just checking that they were on the right channel and probably turning over thinking that they were watching the wrong show. And I just think that it's so brave to take a show and completely flip it on its head like that. And rather than everybody stand around and explain how events happened, how, you know, people became touched, and people being from the future and all the rest, it just has the bravery to put it on the table and show you right there without any prior warning or explanation around it. And I loved it.
One of my first shocking moments about the Nevers is episode 6. It's in chapter 1, the Stripe section. All our people, Stripe and the gang, all come into this lab where they were holding the Galanthi. The moment where the eye opens and they find out that all the scientists were killed in a very brutal way just to torture the Galanthi itself because it bonded with them. That made me cry so much reading it and watching it, because it's just like this creature full of empathy, and it just reminded me of an elephant or something like that. I couldn't believe that I could be so emotional about such a creature I know is not real and have seen the green screen of, and like know the mechanics of the CGI, and yet for me it's just so real.
I think what's disturbing about that whole scene around that is that it's believable that we're capable of that, and what that says to us about what human nature is capable of in the two extremes of extreme love and also of extreme fear and hatred is really disturbing, because you can relate to how this situation has come about, and I think that tells us something about ourselves and our nature.
So I definitely think the third shocking moment for me is the Maladie hanging stroke, the kind of Effie reveal, because for me it was just, when I read it, I just thought there's no way we're going to pull this off. You know, I was like, the writing was so specific, and it was so grand, the idea, and I just thought, how are we going to make this happen? We actually filmed the Effie reveal at the end first before we filmed the town square sequence. But even that Effie reveal, the joy within Maladie playing Effie, because within Maladie there's always that, you know, there's always a Sarah within and an Effie within. And I think just to have that sort of reveal, for me as an actress was, joyful. It was crazy. But to also understand that Maladie had plotted all of this from the first episode. She's a step ahead of every other character in there. And yes, she's dangerous and termed a terrorist, but at the same time, there's glee and enjoyment through the whole thing. And I think it was nice through Effie to see the moments of that. There is possibly a heart within there,
Oh my God. I remember when we were filming The Hanging, and I was like, how are they going to do that though? I don't understand how we're going to, surely you can't put someone in a dangerous situation like that. But watching that and how violent The Hanging itself was, made me do a little wee, to be honest. In episode 6, the moment that Amalia betrays Sarah, who is Maladie, who is Amy Manson, the moment that happens, because I knew that happened, but then to actually see it just blew me away, kind of, just how soldierly you did it and just how you executed it, as if it's nothing, kind of. And it's just that moment of you understand that Amalia has to continue on with the mission at hand, and that's the casualty of the war, I suppose, if you can look at it that way.
Yeah, I remember filming that actually with Laura, and the heartbreak of, because we had so many discussions about it, and actually what happened within the asylum between them, and we kind of came to the conclusion that just merely the fact that those two would have been friends and the deceit from there was just a huge thing for Sarah. Sarah's all this giggly mess all the time because she has no power. But to have no power and then to have a sense of, whatever minuscule, minute bit of power she might have taken away from her by Amalia, and to be in the moment with Laura when she said that was just I didn't have to do any acting. The way Laura just kind of spoke, I was just like, oh my God, you trust somebody so implicitly. And then they just deceive you. It's such a heartbreaking moment.
Even though I knew that there had been this betrayal, and I kind of knew roughly what happened in the asylum, when I read the script from that bit, it taught me a lot about Amalia. And I think that's kind of really the first time that we see her being truly cold, and also where she does something that I think the audience would just really not approve of, and I loved that. I think the chance to show a heroine of sorts, she's a bit of an anti-hero, but a heroine of sorts act completely dishonorably, but according to her own set of morals, unapologetically, is just brilliant.
I think the last shocking moment from the Nevers would be the annihilation of Mary. I think in episode 3, for me, I didn't see that one coming at all, and especially because of the effect, the power that her voice has on everyone, especially Maladie. That's Maladie's pain is deep rooted, and it's love, and she never wants to feel that, or else she would become almost human again. And for Mary to touch on that was such a minefield for Maladie, let alone everyone else of the touch that she managed to touch in that way.
Another shocking thing about Mary's death is the reason behind it. Lord Masson, played by Pip, the fact that it's just to eliminate hope. He's like, no, I'm not having it. The Empire is as is, and that yous are going to, bend the knee. Sorry, that was a Game of Thrones reference. So little I know about the monarchy. I'm just like, bend the knee for Paris. It's been amazing to actually get to, as women, explore very character type parts that often I think we'd probably historically, or growing up, I would have seen a lot of men get to play. The fact that Amy gets to, play this incredibly subversive actually character. She's not a baddie, she's not a goodie, she's just a person with a mission, and it's actually quite admirable how she faces these horrible things that we find out that happened to her. I never thought I'd admire Maladie from the get-go, and then with Laura's character Amalia, I can't believe that I don't agree with everything she does or says, and it's been very interesting for me as playing her right-hand man to try to justify why my character would find her so incredibly wonderful and so incredibly near faultless in a way, like, but seeing so much good in her, even though some of her actions are kind of despicable. And I absolutely love, as an actor, getting to play around with that.
That's the thing. I mean, our industry has changed a lot in the last few years, but we have all been very used to female roles not being available at this level and with this amount of complexity, and especially not all together. You wouldn't have a show with lots of women all playing these really interesting roles.
Yeah, and I think especially with so many women within the show, it sets the tone on set as well. I don't think I've ever been around such a happy set, and I thoroughly enjoyed when we began the first episode, it was Laura and I that were in for stunt rehearsals. And for me, that was so peculiar because you're always around so many men, or you're watching the men do all the big fighting, and it felt really empowering. That's what I think the whole show feels to me. It's unity, and we're all there to bolster each other. And we're such a tight cast, and I've never really had that before in any production.